My name is Cassy Summers. Welcome to the Curious Universe podcast. Welcome to the Curious Universe podcast. My name is Cassy Summers, and I'm so grateful to be exploring here with you today. I had this really cool experience today, actually, and I was like, I want to explore this on the podcast with you all from the kind of perspective of connection, like connecting. Connecting is really a superpower, okay? And I don't know if we really acknowledge enough in the world. So I thought we could acknowledge it together and acknowledge where you have these connecting capacities and also where maybe you've kind of put walls and barriers up to connecting with people, connecting with things, places, events. And what if there was a gift there that was not being received with connection? So when I talk about connection and connecting, please know that I don't necessarily mean the limitation of connection. So there is a limitation of connection. There is where you're connected to people through a thread. Okay. So here's a little visual example for you. Let's say that this is a mom group. I'm a mom, so I'm like connected to them through. You need the right thing to plug in. I was wrong here, so I couldn't connect to them. But then I was right, and I could connect to them, right? And then our connection point is that we're moms, and this is where our energy goes through. That can be a limitation because one, you have to get the right, you have to connect in the right way. You have to maintain that connection. There's a whole bunch of stuff with that that I don't want to go into too much. And you could have total communion. And communion is like the beyond this reality idea of connection, where you're in communion with everyone and everything. Okay. And so just for ease, when I'm talking about connecting capacities, I'm referring to this space of communion that we can be with everyone and everything, not the limited, here's my connection point, and this is the only way we could connect, and we both have to be right and have the right outlets and inlets to connect. Now that's all said, we can connect more on this topic. So here's what occurred today. This is my second or third time, I don't know, calling customer service for an overcharge on my account with the service provider I have. And it has been a really interesting journey because for such a big company, I was very surprised at the way in which they were not handling this and refusing to refund the overcharge. It was very bizarre. But today I got to speak to this lovely lady, and we're having this conversation. And at first, I was expressing some frustration, not being rude or anything, but not overly like much cheery self. But I kept being in this question of, okay, what is truly possible here? What is truly possible here? Well, in that energy of that question, something showed up unexpected, and this is kind of what they're offering. And then, she just had to check in or whatever. And I was like, of course. And so while we were waiting, she actually engaged. She was the one that started having a conversation with me. We're talking about the weather, living in Canada, all this stuff. Now, I had this moment where I realized when she initiated that engagement, I could be like, I don't want to connect to her because she's working for the bad guys that are trying to overcharge me, like all this stuff, right? Like all this frustration, all of these barriers, these walls. And then I thought, okay, or I could, so I could do that. I could just walls up, or I could allow myself to be in communion with this person, allow a sense of connection and connecting in this conversation show up. And I chose that one because more often than not, I like to make the world a happier place. I like to let people know that they matter. And when you're willing to take a moment with someone, do you get how much you're acknowledging their very being? And in that, they can feel so connected to you. So I chose that one. I chose, okay, walls down, woman. So I said to myself, walls down, woman. Let's just engage a little bit. So we start talking. She starts telling me about like her family living here. And it was just a sweet conversation. And then she says to me, well, you sound very young. You must be, you know, like mid 30s or maybe even like in your 20s still. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. No, I'm in my 40s. And then that conversation sparked up more. And then, and so by the end of it, she was so sweet. And it felt like energetically that I was so close with this complete stranger, right? And she said, oh, it's like, I wish I had, because she's 4 years younger than me, we determined through our conversation, that I had a sister like you would just be my older sister and we would have so much fun and I just wish so much that there was some kind of machine and I could just teleport. I'd just be there with you right now. I'd be there with you and we would be like, what are we gonna do together? And it was so genuine and vulnerable and sweet. And I wasn't doing anything. Like I wasn't trying to manipulate her. I wasn't trying to say the right thing. I wasn't doing anything more than connecting. I was just willing to be the energy of connection with this woman. And what came out of it was so incredibly beautiful and warm and generative. I could perceive like her life expanding and so much contribution coming to me in my life. And then, of course, things just showed up greater than I ever imagined possible with the whole refund thing. I really looked at that for a minute though after, and I was like, wow, I don't know if I've ever acknowledged my capacity to connect, which is kind of funny since we connect here every week together in the Curious Universe. But what capacities with, now here we go. This is when we turn it on to you. And this is where you start to get curious about you. What capacities with connecting do you actually have that you either, maybe you avoid, you negate, you fight, you have walls up to? What if you have a capacity to connect that could truly change the world? Think of some of the greatest speakers, like that have, through their ability to connect, have created great movements on the world, right? That have been able to convince someone of the impossible, that have been able to draw in huge crowds of people. There's a lot, like people with a lot of fame. They're either great connectors or they have great connectors working for them. They're doing the connecting piece. This can be something like one that really contributes to your business, obviously, the connecting piece, but also just to your life, where people can feel connected to you. And I keep saying feel connected because that's how they will interpret it, most people. The communion that you're actually inviting them to in their world is going to show up like they feel connected. They feel so connected to you. And That's such a gift, especially in a world where we are so virtual now. We're not bodies in rooms. A lot of people don't even work in an office anymore. You call, the first part of any calling customer service is you're pressing buttons and talking to AI things, and people's social media posts are now all, AI conversations, and everything is so like disconnected. The only thing that we're really promoted to connect to is the internet. Connect to your machines, connect to your phone, don't let it out of your sight. But true communion with people, that sense of connection, is longing in so many. It is lacking in so many areas of the world right now. What gift of connecting could you be that could change someone's whole reality or your whole reality? Think of the people that are close to you in your life. Could be your family, could be your kids, could be your lover, your partner. What sense of connection do you have with them? What sense of connection did they have with you? Wow. And would you actually like to have a greater connection? I know I can notice right away with me and my kiddos, and they're very different and they have very different requirements. But I can perceive when this like distance starts to show up. And I like to keep my kids close, right? They're some of the most wonderful people in the world. And I know the more connected we are, when I say connected again, I mean in communion, things just are smoother, things are easier. When we're like in that true communion, if I request them to do something that they maybe kind of don't want to do, it's not the big, huge deal. If we're like super distant from each other and I'm like, hey, can you do that thing? They're like, no. It's so much more difficult. Everything I've found with parenting has been more difficult when I let like that separation creep in and just push us apart and the walls and barriers come up between us. I work very diligently at continuously lowering my barriers to my kids, continuously inviting more communion and a more sense of that connecting. We do connecting time every single day, something, whether it's just a fun, silly conversation, or I'm being outrageous and ridiculous and making them laugh, or even playing a video game with them, or hanging out, or listening to them talk about something that they're really excited about. This is like that connecting time. Now, look at what, like, there might be cliche connecting time. Like for some people, it's like family dinner, right? That's supposed to be the time where you connect. My kiddo, my oldest kiddo with autism, does not like to talk when he's eating. He doesn't like any other input from anyone when he's eating. He likes to just be present with his food. So like that connecting time, that traditional connecting time, I had to let go of, which bothered me because I had really bought into this is like how we're supposed to do it. This is what is important. This is what's required. But I realized that I could sit there and try and fight with him to connect to me during dinner, or I could wait for 30 minutes after dinner and actually have the ease of communion with him, the ease of conversation, the ease of connecting. So what are those connecting elements that maybe you've never considered that you could bring into your life? And that could be with everyone. So it could be connecting with your body, really feeling like that sense of communion with your body. What activities could you choose, or what conversations can you have that would invite a greater sense of communion and connection? I know for me, there's something about like yoga, like body movement, dancing. I love dancing. Body, but especially I would say body movement and like breathing with body movement that gives me that sense of like connection with my body. And the access conscious body processes. They're so amazing. Those always bring out like such a sense of true connecting with my body and communion with my body. And then I told a little bit more with my kids and what else. So what are the things that, and maybe you need to try some new things if sometimes the old stuff doesn't work anymore. Are you willing to play with that? Are you willing to explore what capacities you have with connecting with, if you're in business, like with your audience, with your potential clients, potential customers? What did they require of you to have a sense of connection? Maybe it's get a little more vulnerable. Maybe it's get a little more personal. Maybe you're too personal and they feel like a little weird and you need to like get a little bit more professional. They'll feel more connected to you. If you're really willing to be truly in that question and that curiosity, you might unravel some things with connecting that you didn't expect. Like, for example, with this beautiful woman I was talking with, I've never had a conversation about the weather turn into anything wonderful. It's usually very boring for me. And I'm like, yeah, the weather. Like, we're just passing time. Weather is strange. Weather is wonderful and weird. But this particular conversation, wow, it really touched me. And I could perceive how much it was touching her. Are you willing to touch people, like touch their very being with your presence and willingness to connect? Willingness to have communion with them and whatever's showing up with them in that moment. Whether it's a stranger, whether it's a best friend, your husband or wife for the past 35 years. What if you could take those moments and allow yourself to truly commune with them, to truly have that sense of connecting? You might be noticing the energy right now, and you might not, and that's okay. It doesn't mean it's not occurring. And what if you explored what is it like for you and not judge it and not expect it to be a certain way, but also know that it is ever evolving and ever changing because we are always changing. So we're going to connect in different ways. I know with my kiddos, like how I connect with them now as preteens and teenagers is so different than when they were 6 or when they were 2, when they were a little baby. There's just the way that we would connect then is so different. Energetically has even changed. I was going to say energetically is much the same, but it hasn't been because we have all expanded and grown so much energetically. So our ability to commune and connect energetically is so much grander and so different than it was. So what capacities with connecting do you have that you've completely negated or avoided or refused that you truly could choose, that if you would choose it, would change all realities, including your reality, and create a more beautiful reality for them, for you, and for all? Anything that doesn't allow that, we destroy and create it, please. Right, wrong, good, bad, POC, bot, all nine shorts, boys, bubbles, beyonds. That was the Access Conscious Clearing Statement. I can't believe we almost went the full episode without using it. If you're new to the show, there's always a link to the clearingstatement.com to find out more information. It's just a little magic set of words we use here on the show to change energy. Wow. So I hope you get curious about that. I hope you explore what is connecting for you. And are you able to connect with other people? Maybe you connect better one-on-one. Maybe you actually connect better when there's a crowd of people. Maybe you connect better with objects or animals than you do with people. Maybe you connect beautifully with the earth in this really special way. It is a capacity. It is a talent. It is a gift. It is a capacity to connect. And what if you explored it a little bit more? And in that exploration, open up and actually grow that capacity. Because wouldn't it be nice to live in the world where we didn't feel so separated, so divided, so isolated, that we actually had a sense of communion with all sorts of wonderful, kind, nurturing, fun, fabulous people all around the planet? It is truly available. It's truly possible if we're willing to choose it. And you don't have to figure out how. Just choose it. Start asking some of the questions that I brought forward here in the podcast. Explore it. Get curious about you. Connect with you. How much is in the curiosity and in the question that you actually get a greater sense of connection with you, the infinite being, and connecting with your knowing, your perceiving, your receiving, your being. That's what's possible. Connecting is this magical thing that I don't know if it's really talked enough about or acknowledged. What if you could acknowledge it now? And if you feel like you're a terrible, awful, ridiculous connector and you've never felt connected, listen to this a couple times maybe. Because maybe it will open up a little bit more for you so you can have a little bit more communion. Thank you for exploring this topic. This was so fun. I'm curious to know if you got anything out of this. I'm curious to know how you most love to connect with people, plants, animals, whatever it is. Is it spending time with them? Is it acts of like gifts, or is it like through what's the word I'm looking for? It's like acts of service where you like, I know for me, and this is just, I know my love language, it's if someone like makes me like a cup of coffee or brings me something when they didn't have to, like those kind of things, I feel so connected to them because I feel so cared for. And for me, like when I feel cared for, my barriers lower, and then my sense of communion with someone just kind of activates, just happens. And so if you're looking to connect more with others, you can really be in that question of what did they require to feel connected to me? Because and every moment, again, it might be totally different, but because I described my love language, it doesn't mean that would connect for other people as well. So you gotta explore them, explore you, get curious, and let me know how it goes in the comments below. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for exploring the curious universe with me. Your curiosity matters. And what if together we could create a greater, more curious world?